Well, well, well. Who could have thought that Carlos Sainz would get his first podium before Lewis Hamilton? Who would have thought? It wasn't Fred Vasseur, that's for sure. That's for sure, Timmy. Also, let me just throw this at you. Max Verstappen, pretty good at driving. Don't know if anybody's told you or not, but I'm just going to throw that out there. Max Verstappen, title threat? Title threat, Tim? But a high-pitched voice? Come on. Well, is it a yay? Is it a yay or a nay, Tim?
Okay, well, according to Andres Stella, who had said team principal for McLaren, said on Saturday following post-qualifying that is a firm yes.
Of course. Of course it is, because he's never, ever fully out of it. His name is Max Verstappen. So I guess, Tim, we should start with the best, and the best is him. Crazy qualifying session where Oscar Piastri binned it and then binned it again in the first lap of the race. And so that takes your current leader out, which is a major opportunity, not just for Max Verstappen, but for Lando Norris as well. And, you know, Lando had engine failure, had to retire the car, I believe, in Hungary. And we didn't think it was going to even out like this, but it did. And Lando didn't really take advantage in the way that I think he probably would have wanted to. But let's go with Max first. Let's just talk about his weekend. What a drive.
Yeah, Lando retired in Zandvoort.
Yeah. Oh, Zandvoort. That's what it was. You know, I have a terrible memory. Yeah, one of those races.
And, yeah, I mean, Max was obviously incredible, and he did what he had to do. But, Adam, I think, like, you know, with Red Bull, Laurent Mekies, Max Verstappen, Yuki Tsunoda, the team in general.
Crazy.
I mean, yeah, they've taken such a huge swing from where they were 2 months ago to now. It's massive, obviously. But then, I mean, when Christian Horner gets fired, Laurent Mekies gets promoted from Racing Bulls up to Red Bull Racing to be the team principal, the big boss at the team. And I think, you know, a lot of us, including the two of us on this show, we talked a lot about, you know, how much could this guy really do in the span of, a few months, let alone a year, because it takes a long time to really turn the ship at a race team.
Yep.
And I would say, Adam, like, he's done a pretty good job of it so far. And I think he hasn't taken any of the credit that I think that should be going his way. Like, yeah. And I'm not saying that, you know, he should be showering himself in glory and all that kind of stuff, but like, he's been putting, Pierre Vacher was up on the podium at the end of the Italian Grand Prix. He's the guy that made this car. Paul Monahan as well on the podium here in Baku. Again, those are two individuals who I would say were behind the scenes under a lot of pressure at Red Bull Racing to get this car back on the right track, fix things. They're the ones who would be responsible for a lot of the issues that were happening with this race car. I think for Mekies, just want to start with him because back at the Hungarian Grand Prix, you know, we talked about it with Julianne when she was on last week, was the fact that they had done so much experimentation with this car at the Hungarian Grand Prix to sort of figure out what were the strengths, what were the weaknesses, and how could they improve or make things better. And that was such a sole focus for Mekies and the team. And it's that, it's that engineering mind, the engineering team principal, as I like to call them, now stepping into these positions and really directing the team on where they should be going with the car and the drivers. And the big thing for Mekies was doing that experimentation, making sure that they were listening to the drivers, which sounds like something they haven't really been doing. Exactly, Adam.
What? Listen to the drivers. Why would you do that?
I know. Why would you want to do such a thing?
Why would you listen to Checo? Why would you listen to Liam? Why would you listen to anybody else who came before them or after them?
Why wouldn't you listen to Max Verstappen?
Yeah, which is crazy, by the way. That's just crazy.
That's what engineers do sometimes, Adam. They just don't. They do not listen to the drivers, and they think that the data tells them everything when it doesn't.
Right.
Okay, it just doesn't. And Formula One engineers have been doing this for decades. And they wonder why sometimes they eat drivers up and spit them out because they're not listening to them. So when we take a look at that, we understand what Mekies' sole focus was to make sure that they understood the car inside and out, and then we're listening to the drivers, what they needed, where they wanted to go. Mm-hmm. And then they introduced the revised floor update that they had brought to the Italian Grand Prix. And Andrea Stella had said on Saturday, post-qualifying, that car looks a lot different now. If you go back and see what they had done to it from the Italian Grand Prix onwards, he says that the car is just night and day difference. They have unlocked a lot of the potential, and that's got McLaren really scared. Really, really scared. And a big part of this floor update, and I think we should make a note because we should dive into that because this is going to play a factor, Adam, in a little bit here. But circling back to the drivers, when they started listening to the drivers, especially at the Italian Grand Prix, when Max told them to lose a lot of the rear wing and they're back there shaving parts of it off to try and make this thing as fast as they could in a straight line, you can also see the development of the second driver.
Right.
Usually when that Red Bull seat, the second seat, once it starts to gain competitiveness, usually the car gains competitiveness. And sort of Max obviously is just Max, right? There's just only so many drivers who can really keep up with him.
Of course.
And those drivers aren't in that second seat, and they haven't been. But you take a look at when Max is given the equipment, he goes and he does what he needs to do. And that's what he did today. He's a championship caliber driver. I am very impressed with what he and that team have done in the span of 3 races. Because obviously the Dutch Grand Prix, I think, that's sort of also where it kind of all began for this team.
Well, okay, so this is what when I look at the standings here, Tim, because you said is when the second drive gets better, that's when Red Bull's back, and because Max is really a cheat code. But I'm looking at this, and we know that Arvid Lindblad is going to get into that Racing Bulls seat next year. So Yuki Tsunoda and Liam Lawson are racing for their lives here, and Liam Lawson beat out Yuki Tsunoda, but that's one of the better finishes that Yuki Tsunoda, probably the best finish he's had in a Red Bull this year.
It is.
Let's hold on Liam Lawson for a second and let's talk about Yuki's improvement because he's been a back marker, can't compete, and everybody sort of laid off on him because we all kind of knew it was the car. Like, how many drivers do you need to go through before it's the car? And I mean, man, Cadillac must be so happy that Checo was available, honestly.
Yeah.
I bet there's a few teams on the grid who went, probably should have signed him. Mm-hmm. But I look at Yuki's finish here and go, okay, is it repeatable? Is this something that is this a trend? Are we going to see him in the bottom half of the top 10? Are we going to start to see him pushing into the top 5 here? Or is this just a track that suits this particular car and this particular driver?
I think this is where the floor conversation needs to kind of come into play. Adam, I know it's not a sexy sort of topic, but at the end of the day, it makes a huge difference. And this is really actually going to tell us which direction not only the car is going, but also this championship could end up going.
Right.
When Red Bull Racing introduced this revised floor at the Italian Grand Prix, Helmut Marko believed that, there was potential for this car that got unlocked. However, even though Monza was expected to be a tough race weekend for Red Bull Racing, and it turned into being like full dominance for Red Bull Racing, and that being that, hey, we were quick at a track that we thought that we weren't supposed to be quick at, we were quick at. So that means that the floor has actually done something. But Helmut Marko, leaving there, believed that in Singapore, when they get to Singapore, if they were able to score points in Singapore and have a very competitive team in Singapore, then they'll have fully confirmed that this floor and the revised changes that they made to the car have worked. Mm-hmm. I think, Adam, though, when we look at the second seat and you see how competitive Yuki was on Sunday, if they trim that car out just a tiny bit more, I mean, he's got Liam Lawson for sure. Like he's getting by him.
Right.
Because Yuki actually was very quick on Sunday. It was quick on Saturday as well. But I think it's just those little tiny things for the driver being like, yes, take more rear wing out of the car before qualifying. It's going to be a scary ride, but it's going to serve me more when I get into the race.
And Liam Lawson, we got to talk about his qualifying. I know you already did on the podcast, but he was on the intro podcast and the one that we released on Saturday. Obviously, again, racing for his life, putting in great races, especially the last 5. You would say that now we get him. He's comfortable with the car. He knows its limits, and he can get the most out of it, which is why he was promoted to Red Bull in the first place. They really like the way this guy drives, and he put in an incredible qualifying, which set him up for a great race. Is this a repeatable performance from him? Maybe not top 5 in that Racing Bulls car, but are we going to start to see Liam Lawson regularly in the points again?
It's going to be tough because there's going to be tracks where Racing Bulls will be competitive. There will be tracks where Racing Bulls is just not going to be competitive. And then they'll be doing the same dance of just trying to push their way into Q3, squabbling over, 9th, 10th place. I don't really see Racing Bulls consistently having performance like they did on Sunday. I mean, however, it could be wrong, but I don't think I am. I think there will be tracks where they do struggle. I mean, it is a good performance from Liam Lawson when he really needed it. Because, like you had mentioned, that second seat, first seat, whatever you want to call it at Racing Bulls, it is up for grabs. And that is a battle that's going to have to happen between Tsunoda and Liam Lawson. The thing with Red Bull is they haven't given up on either one of those drivers just yet, which I find interesting because we know that Yuki's funding from Honda is going to be gone when Honda moves over to Aston Martin. So the fact that Red Bull Racing hasn't made a final decision on who's going to be in that seat at Racing Bulls, I mean, makes it a very competitive battle between those two drivers. And interesting enough that they find each other on track at the Azerbaijan Grand Prix, right? And
no kidding.
Isaac Hajar, he has an okay weekend. Wasn't anything stellar, but it wasn't anything that was bad either. And I think for Hajar, we've already seen that this guy's got it.
He's done enough.
Yeah,
he's done enough. He's just got to keep it consistent the rest of the way, I think.
100%.
Right?
Totally agree.
Laurent Mekies' stats after his first 5 races as team principal. You ready for this?
Hit me.
3 podiums, 2 race wins, 2 pole positions, and a sprint win.
That's not too bad, eh?
That might be the best team principal start after 5 races ever.
That's pretty good.
It's pretty good. Now it helps that he's got the best driver in a generation, but Tim, we touched on it earlier. I want to come back to it. Laurent Mekies, beyond his engineering background, which you've already said, let's talk about his personality. You've met this person, you've talked to him. What type of leadership style does he have? And I want you to contrast that because, with Christian Horner, I got a sense of what it is, but I don't actually know. I got the sense he was pretty cutthroat. I got the sense that he was pretty honest about driving performances, but I don't know what kind of atmosphere he liked the team to be under. So how has Red Bull's atmosphere changed since his departure and Mr. Mekies' promotion?
One of the things I noticed, and I think I had said this to another colleague of mine when I was in the Red Bull Racing motorhome and we were leaving after Max Verstappen's media availability on the Thursday of the Italian Grand Prix. And first and foremost, the sense that I'd gotten from just being in there and around the team a little bit is the fact that things seem very calm. Much calmer than they were in the past. And I think that that's a bit of Mekies rubbing off on everyone. I don't see, I think obviously there's pressure to perform and there's pressure from, your bosses and things of that nature, but I don't see it as pressure as in you better do this right or you're gone type pressure. It seems like there's a little more give and take in there. It seems that things are a little more relaxed in that sense. And I think, Adam, people listen to him. It's, one of the things that I was concerned about was the fact that, Horner had so many engineers, mechanics, people he'd hired, brought into the team, things of that nature that really had his back. Mm-hmm. And when he got let go, I was concerned that for Mekies, the team wasn't going to give him a proper shot.
Yes. Yeah.
And that was a huge concern for me because I'd seen the work that he had done down at Racing Bulls. I'd been around that team. I'd spoken with him before, and the sense that I got, he was a very, very calm man, thoughtful, and had a process of how he felt things should be done. And in a way, Adam, that this guy's been on very competitive teams. He's been with the FIA. He's been through it all. He's seen a lot, and he knows what works. And also on top of all that, he knows the engineering side of the sport, which now, Adam, when we take a look at team principals, a lot of them are turning into former engineers.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, Christian Horner on Drive to Survive accused Toto Wolff of not being an engineer. Like he said, well, he's not an engineer, so he doesn't get the car. Now,
well, Horner wasn't an engineer either. So.
No, that's what I know, right? Like it's such a funny chirp. It's also interesting too. Something that we see sports wide is a discussion of how a coach or a GM, and in this case, a team principal is a coach and a GM.
Yep.
Relates to people of this generation. We saw it with Gen X and boomers relating to millennials, and we're really seeing it with boomers, Gen X relating to Gen Z. And a lot of the drivers now, a lot of the best drivers are Gen Z guys. And what I think is interesting, and this is a total aside and me just projecting, but the communication styles of people in their 20s versus people in their 50s are just so different. Yeah. And guys in their 50s grew up with people yelling at them, and that's what they responded to, or that constant pressure or whatever. And I'm not saying the pressure isn't there, but I think that there are communication styles that people appreciate and can relate to better, which are more direct and less head gamey. And I feel like that's, Gen Z is a very literal generation. And I think that that direct sort of feedback seems to be across sports. And again, painting with a broad brush here, seems to be the way to get the best out of them. And it just seems like Laurent's the guy to do that. And I really feel like, he's worked with Yuki, knows him well. Max is Dutch, so of course he's as blunt as possible, right? Like that's just the way they are. I think it kind of lends itself to the future of Red Bull. I'm really excited about it. And you could see that too. Ayo Komatsu with Haas and James Vowles with Williams. Very calm, both engineering backgrounds, right? Like Laurent, but I would say very calm, straightforward. Here's what it is. No head games. And like even if you want to go back and see for yourself when Ollie Behrman was on last year and he put in a lap or something like that, and Ayo pulled him aside and said that wasn't good enough. And Ollie's like, yeah, I know, I get it. He's like, yeah, not good enough here, and here, and then boom, move on with your life, rather than the politics. And so I got to ask you this, Tim. And again, tough question to answer, but I'm going to ask it anyway. One of the things about Red Bull has been their politics. It's been the Christian Horner versus whatever driver wasn't Max Verstappen or whatever driver wasn't Sebastian Vettel, and Helmut Marko versus whatever driver wasn't Max Verstappen and Sebastian Vettel. And sniping at each other in the press and this and that all seems to have gone away. I can't remember the last incendiary Helmut Marko comment I saw, and I saw them all last year and all the year before and years before that. What changed there?
I think it was a lot of divvying up the responsibility. I mean, when, Mekies comes in, the team is not Team Horner anymore, right? Like that gets broken up. and that workload has to be shared around. I mean, you can't expect Laurent to not only be a team principal but also the CEO and try to do both. That's going to be, a tall task. It's what work is being delegated where, what is Mekies' responsibility, what are others, and I think they've really started to lean more on Helmut Marko now.
Right.
And just basically give him what he needs to go and do what it is he needs to do. And I think for Mekies, I'm sure he's fine with that. I'm sure he doesn't want to butt heads with Helmut straight out of the gate either. I think that is a relationship that needs time to, for the two of them to explore each other and to understand each other, which, they probably do by now. But I just think it's not a great place for him to go and start stepping on toes and things of that nature, where it's it's a guy that, Max looks up to, really appreciates in Helmut Marko, and Laurent's kind of the new guy in, but Max is really starting to like and appreciate what Laurent does as well, and listening to him. And I think for Max, that's all he's ever wanted, was for the bigger brass to listen to what he is saying. And I think Laurent does that. And
How many world championships does a guy need to win before somebody listens to them?
Yeah, but he takes what Max is saying, though, Adam, and using his engineering background is able to allow Max to make calls on the car like he wants to. Like in the race on Sunday, like that's Max calling for, pit stops in tires. That's him sort of navigating on where he feels that they should be in certain moments. It's Max being the one who's saying, take more wing out of the car. That's him making those gut calls, and that's the team now listening to what he wants. And when your car isn't the greatest, that's when you really need your driver, and that's when you really need to listen to your driver. And for Laurent, he recognized that straight out of the gate. It was an easy fix for him, I think, when he came over. He's like, well, we're not even listening to this guy. What are we doing? And let's start listening to him. And I think, Adam, you talk about the politics behind the scenes and things of that nature. Well, that's Formula One.
Yeah, right? but Red Bull was so out front with it, and I'm sure there is politicking behind the scenes always, but
everywhere.
But it was so at the forefront, and now you hear nothing, whispers.
Exactly.
Nothing.
And that's the thing. He's kept things calm, right? He's kept things very calm internally. And I think he's given Max and Yuki the environment, a calm environment where there isn't a lot of fighting and infighting going on. And if there is, they're not seeing it. And I think that's extremely important, especially for the driver who needs to be focused, concentrated at all times, and it doesn't matter. So, yeah, Adam, I think... I know this has been a lot about Laurent Mekies and talking a lot about Laurent Mekies. I think it matters, right? It does matter. This is what I'm trying to say. This is very, very important. He's done a lot.
It's the story
here.
Of the day. It really is. I mean, you look at that. I mean, you've got all four drivers from the Red Bull teams in the points, and that's been a long time since that happened. And he's the only guy that's been team principal of both teams this year. So I think it's relevant. Right?
It is. It definitely is. But I mean, when we look at this championship now, bigger picture.
Yep.
We're going to know more when we get to Singapore, obviously, and we're going to talk about McLaren in a bit. But
yeah, we'll get there.
I think, Adam, when what Max needed, we left, Italy. I said this on SportsCenter. I'll tell you the guys a story. So. I told this story on SportsCenter. I'll do it here. So in Italy, at the very end of the race weekend, I was talking with some people in the paddock, and they were basically saying to me, like, Max. I was like, hey, he's 94 points behind. I'm like, there's no chance. And they were like, yeah, there's a chance, and I think there's a good chance. And I was like, you really think so? And they're like, yeah. And then it got me thinking, and I was like, there's no way. I'm like, there's just. Like, forget it. Like, I do not believe it that there is a chance. I said, he would need Piastri to DNF. Piastri doesn't make mistakes.
No.
He does not make mistakes.
Yep.
And what happens straight out of the gate on Sunday? Boom.
Huge mistake.
Huge mistake.
Huge mistake. Like enormous mistake. And you know what? Let's talk about McLaren then. Just a forgettable weekend, and really the first forgettable weekend they've had all year.
Yeah.
Oscar just didn't seem to take to the track, Tim.
No, it wasn't good. It wasn't a good weekend. I think first Adam, I'm going to ask you, obviously, because you're a huge McLaren fan.
Yeah.
Because this question was asked to me actually on SportsCenter again. I'm going to ask it to you because I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Is McLaren feeling the pressure, or is some of this just bad luck?
Well, I think the Piastri thing, if it was feeling the pressure, I would need to see that a couple races or 3 races, some big mistakes, 3 races in a row. I mean, this is a team that last year did only made mistakes and yet won the championship for the teams, right? That was a major part of their season was, hey, this is not a championship team yet. They haven't learned how to make mistakes and recover from them, or they haven't learned how not to make those mistakes. That's where we get the famous papaya rules coming into the forefront for the first time. I look at this this weekend and I go, this happens in Formula One. There are 24 races, and you're going to have a bad weekend. And it's unfortunate that it happened, Tim, on the weekend where they would have clinched the team championship with a good finish. And so they're going to have to wait. But I also like that when you are facing adversity, right, where you need to face adversity, unless you're 2022, 2023 Red Bull, then you don't need to face any adversity.
Yes.
But to win a championship, I mean, Red Bull faced a ton of adversity going into that. Getting over the Lewis Hamilton hump was not easy. It was years and years and years and years in the making. And so I look at what happened this weekend at Red Bull and I go, okay, Red Bull, McLaren, I can't chalk this up to other than this is what happens in Formula One sometimes. You have a bad weekend, a track doesn't work for you, you make a mistake, shit happens, right? I would have liked to have seen a better race from Lando Norris. I really would have. I would have liked to have seen a better qualifying from Lando Norris. I just don't think he was that competitive. I'm grading on a curve. He's got one of the best cars in the podium, and he only finished 2 seconds ahead of Lewis Hamilton, who's having the season from hell, and we'll get to that. I don't know. I think that was the time for Lando to take over, and he didn't. You toss it in the trash and you move on to the next weekend. Singapore. If it happens again in Singapore, Tim, then I'm sitting here having a much different conversation with you. Does that make sense?
Yep, absolutely. I think for Piastri, definitely was a up and down weekend. I think for qualifying, I'll start there with him. Mm-hmm. I think for qualifying, if he was able to piece it together, he probably would have been close to grabbing pole position. It would have been a close battle between himself and if Charles Leclerc had stayed in it as well. Yeah. There would have been a 3-team battle for pole.
Right.
I will say that if those other two drivers had have not crashed their cars, then it would have been fine. But I digress. I think for Oscar, when he sees the lights, reacts. Obviously, there is the eagerness there to get off the line, get a good start, try to make up some positions, some grounds, stop the bleeding to your teammate. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And reacting too soon, that's a mistake. And then the anti-stall kicking in, you're having to wait for anti-stall to do its thing. By that time, the lights have gone out and everybody's passing you and he's dead last. Then I think there's turn 2, he makes a pass. I think it was coming out of turn 2. He makes a pass. Turn 3, makes a pass again. 4, and then on his way to 5, I think he sees what the Sauber in front of him was doing. Follows, I think it was Hulkenberg, follows him, and it's at that moment that's the dirty air. He's on a little dirtier part of the track. He's way offline. He's not even close to the apex. And it's kind of one of those I think I can pull this off. And at the moment you commit, you're like, oh no, I've made a huge mistake and into the wall. crashes the car. That's the end of it. And that, for me, is that eagerness of trying to make up the positions that you've lost because you've made a mistake at the start, but you make another mistake. For me, that's pressure.
Yeah.
And that, to me, for Oscar Piastri, is a sign that he does feel pressure.
Well, it's nice to know that he feels anything.
That's the thing.
He's been ice in his veins the whole year.
Yeah, exactly. He stood in the media pen and he took 40 good questions, and he stood in there and took them all and accepted the blame, took the blame, admit that he had made a mistake. Judgment call wasn't the greatest, wasn't at the right time. But one of the things that Stella had said following the race was the fact that he learns quickly from mistakes and he doesn't do them after he's made them once. We'll agree with Andrea Stella on that, because that is exactly the things that I've seen from Oscar Piastri. That's a championship caliber driver. There is no question about it. However, you've now let Max Verstappen in the front door. His foot's in there. It's ajar. He's going to have to find a way of closing it in Singapore, or else they're going to be in tough, man, because by the time these tracks that are coming up, maybe not Piastri's best tracks. I mean, maybe Qatar was okay for him his rookie year, but outside of that, I don't know. Like, they go to Vegas and they're going to struggle, man. Yeah. Vegas isn't going to be an easy race for them. It won't. And what happens in Brazil? We always get inclement weather. We saw what happened with Max in Brazil last year.
Oh, yeah.
It was one of the greatest drives. So this isn't over. And I think for Piastri, Singapore is going to be a big race for him. Now, Adam, when we talk about the team pressure, and we can kind of mix Lando in this as well. Zandvoort was bad luck. Just bad luck. Just was. Monza, I would say, for Lando in the pit stop, I also say that's bad luck. Baku, pit stop for Lando. That's pressure, man. I think that is pressure.
Okay.
And I think, even though Stella did say he felt it was more hardware related than operations, I still feel that when you have your guys on the side of the garage, they know that, hey, our guy can eat into Oscar's lead.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
We got to make sure we give him everything he needs this week, for this race, because he can dig into Oscar's lead. And people may not understand, but these two garages, they're competitive with each other as well.
Of course.
There's been seasons where garages have been divided.
Yeah. Because
of their drivers. Hamilton, Rosberg.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah, absolutely.
That's a perfect example of when garages get divided. And so you have that pressure of, we got one stop, we got to make it count. If we get this on properly, we get a good stop, we get Lando out there, potential for him to be P5, P6 as he's exiting pit lane. And you have a massive error, and he returns to the track. What was it, P8, I think it was, and he had to overtake Leclerc to get back to P7, and then gets stuck behind Tsunoda in a DRS train with Lawson, Tsunoda, and himself. And that's car setup related.
Yep.
That goes back to the beginning of your weekend, where you come in and maybe McLaren's just a little too conservative with that car setup, Adam.
Yeah, I don't know. They are going to have to, I mean, you would know better than I would in terms of car setup, but I do think they're going to have to go back to the drawing board and go, where we go wrong this weekend. Because ultimately, they don't need to win every race, right? You got to remember that. They don't need to win every race. They got to be competitive. You got to be in the top 5. Both drivers need to be in the top 5. And there's no excuse. The car's too good. You can't tell me that that's good enough. And, that's where you sit down with the pit crews and you say, guys, listen, I know we're all feeling it, but we've got a championship to win here. So you got to do whatever it is you got to do to get back focused, because the pressure, while it's good and motivates, can't take over and pull your focus. And, we need consistent, good finishes. They don't always have to be spectacular. If you get consistent and good, then spectacular happens, because it's in your habits. It's in what you do every single day, part of your preparation. I don't know. I'm looking. I keep waiting, Tim, for Lando to take over and be the guy that we all think he can be.
Mm-hmm.
And I keep waiting. And the key word is I keep waiting. Mm-hmm. If I were him, I would want to sit down with my pit crew and go, guys, like, what do we got to do here? What are we going to do? And I actually saw a really funny meme on the internet. They're like, Lando Norris had a slow pit stop, but there's nobody to swap cars with. It's like a little unfair, but it's also kind of like, shit, man. I want to take that problem, which I'm sure, listen, McLaren has problems, Red Bull has problems, but I'm sure both teams would not want to trade problems with what Ferrari's got. Because I look at what's going on there, and Carlos Sainz getting his first podium, and George Russell finishing second place. That's Lewis's former teammate. The guy he replaced and the guy who's his former teammate, 2 and 3 in this race. Also, the guy who now holds Lewis's seat, fourth place, which is a great get-right way race for Kimi Antonelli and Mercedes as a whole. We'll hold on that. Tim, there was a viral video of Lewis's agent and Fred Vasseur talking after qualifying on Saturday. It looked to be tense. I just want to know where Ferrari's at. Like, what is this team now? This is not how this season was supposed to go.
Yeah, not at all. That's I believe that's Mark Hines you're referring to, Adam. Speaking with Fred Vasseur. Yeah, the conversation looked tense. Again, that was following qualifying, and I think there was a lot of miscommunication with tire prep, and which tires we should be on kind of conversation that Fred probably faced from both drivers because they both had those issues on different sets. Mm-hmm. However, I don't think that Ferrari thought they were going to be in this place at this moment, this time a year ago. Mm-hmm. I don't think they thought they would ever be here. Their thoughts were, we're going to be championship contenders. We're going to be fighting for P1 and constructors, and one of our drivers is going to be fighting for a driver's title, if not both.
Right.
Big thanks has to go to Carlos Sainz, because he put in he
was great.
A ton of work at that team to get that car pointed in the right direction. And I think, he doesn't get the credit that he deserves. And I think for Lewis, free practice 2, whatever setup they were using for free practice 2, I don't know why they went away from that. That just didn't make any sense. Now, that's not just the team, right? That's the driver as well, putting that input in there at some points at the same time. But at the same time, why weren't they sticking with what was working?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Because I think for Lewis, when it got to the race pace, just the car all over the shop, but by the sounds of it, I mean, you think he said at the end of it, that was a lot of work for nothing. And then going on to say we need more performance with the rear end of the car. So clearly wasn't too stoked about what was happening with the rear end of the car. Also, remember, both drivers did swap positions.
Yeah.
And then Lewis was supposed to give the spot back to Leclerc. Mm-hmm. Lewis did slow before the start-finish line. I wasn't too sure if Lewis knew exactly where it was, because it had moved. It is different from where they kind of start from in a way.
Is that going to create an issue, by the way?
For Leclerc, he didn't feel it was going to. He didn't really care, because he said that we shouldn't be fighting over P8 and P9.
Yeah.
Essentially is what Charles was saying. He was dealing with the power unit issue for part of the race anyways for Leclerc. So his race as well didn't go the way he wanted it to. I mean, that could have been ERS related. I'm not 100% certain on what exactly was plaguing Leclerc's power unit for some of the race. However, Lewis did say that, that wouldn't happen again. The fact that they had swapped and Leclerc didn't get the place back, even though Lewis did try to give it back.
Yeah.
He had said that next time that'll definitely happen. We will be swapping, and I'm paraphrasing, obviously, but
good.
Neither one of those guys really happy right now, Adam.
No.
I mean, they shouldn't be, right? They're on Ferrari, man. Like, they should be fighting at the front for podiums and victories.
It'd be a tough day to be able to read Italian and read all the newspapers tomorrow. But I can't read Italian. Now let's talk about Williams. Feel good story here. We believe that they have stopped developing the car. Carlos Sainz has struggled with the car all year. I mean, let's be honest. It's not the season that he would have wanted. But this has got to feel awesome. Podium beats out Ferrari, as I mentioned, to a podium. Like Lewis Hamilton has not been on a podium. Now Carlos Sainz has. It seems like he's getting more comfortable in that seat. Obviously, we've got the regulation changes next year, and we expect Williams to be a surprise good team, especially with that Mercedes power unit. What can you say about Carlos Sainz's ability to stay in it? He never seems to give up, Tim.
This has to go back to qualifying on Saturday, right? Because I think if you're Alex Albon, you're also in around the neighborhood where Carlos Sainz is as well. I mean, obviously, Albon not really anticipating the change in track condition, grip level when he goes to do his push lap and then dinging the wall. And that's the end of it for him in Q1. And then Alex has to try and make up all that ground. Obviously, he has a bit of a fight with Franco Colapinto. And so I think for Alex, shame that qualifying went the way it did for him, because I think if he had nailed the quali, he would have been in the neighborhood of where Carlos was. But for Carlos, got to take your hat off for him, because for qualifying, the conditions, he met that sort of moment, right? Where it was your car should be in the top 5. If no Lando Norris, no Oscar Piastri, the Ferraris aren't there, then you should be close to qualifying in the top 5 with the pace that we have in this car. And that's what the simulation was telling them. And so Carlos basically answered the bell by putting pretty solid lap together. I broke it down on TSN's YouTube page if anyone wants to go back and take a look at it. However, when qualifying was over that evening, the team didn't really believe that they could capture a podium on Sunday. Mm-hmm. But their race pace is what really surprised them the most. And I think they had noticed that they had set the car up so well that they actually had incredible race pace. And they didn't really discover that until the actual race itself.
Yeah.
And they executed it brilliantly. And so I think when we talk about, James Vowles, being there and getting the team set up, getting the right drivers put in place, this is what we're talking about, like making sure that the team is ready when sort of that moment is there. And Carlos is the guy who got them that first podium for Williams since 2021.
Yeah.
Like it was Belgian Grand Prix with George Russell. So it's a very interesting moment. You had mentioned it at the top of the show. Carlos obviously getting his first podium with Williams before Lewis has even gotten a podium with Ferrari at the moment. And I think podiums could be in Lewis's future later this season. I'm not writing Hamilton off.
You never write off Lewis Hamilton.
You never, exactly. But, I mean, this is just a really big moment. It's got to make him feel really good about himself. He's probably got a big chip on his shoulder right now because of all of the things that I've just sort of laid out there. Now, I think, Carlos knew that when George basically jumped up into P2 and he learned about what Russell's pace was, he knew that wasn't his race.
Right.
He knew that at that moment, I think he was asked if second place was possible. And he said it wasn't around until the first 10 laps of the hard tire. The team was telling him George's lap times on his used hard tires compared to his newer hard tires, and he knew there was no chance of securing P2, and that he was fighting for P3. I found that quite interesting because Antonelli was obviously coming up behind him, but Carlos did a really good job of keeping the position, not making any mistakes, and that's why you brought this guy over, not only to make your team better, but also to capitalize on good point scoring hauls when they're in their grasp, so to speak.
Right. Yeah, and that's Albon's had to do a lot of that over the past couple of years, play hardcore defense and, basically park the bus in front of anybody else behind him.
Canada, what was it? Canada 2023, I think it was.
Yeah, like crazy stuff. Like it's like the gap between him and the car ahead is like 25 seconds, and there's like a train of cars behind him trying to get past him, and they can't. And that's how he's had to win. Williams might be able to win on their speed in the future, and I think that is an exciting thing for a brand so synonymous with Formula One, right?
How do you think James Vowles feels, Adam?
Oh my God, he's got to feel so validated, not just by signing Carlos Sainz, but just in the terms of he believed in himself. He really plumb position at Mercedes. He didn't have to go, and he was probably making great money there. But he goes to Williams and goes, "I'm going to take this team that unfortunately has had one of the worst decades in Formula One history, and I am going to turn it around, and I'm going to modernize it." And Tim, there are still problems at Williams.
Oh yeah.
This is an old factory. This is, old ways of doing things. And James comes in there. He doesn't yell. He doesn't scream. He just kind of goes, "Okay, we're going to change our systems, and here's how they're going to go." And, it didn't go well, right? We forget. Last year, they couldn't even race a driver in the second race of the year.
Yep.
Right? Like, because they didn't have enough parts. I mean, this is one heck of a turnaround for a team that really a lot of people had written off for. They're going to get sold. Someone's going to change the name, and it's going to become something else. And I'm sure glad it's still Williams.
You brought back a memory just from when you said Toto Wolff, James Vowles. So at the end of the race on Sunday, Mercedes had sent James like a gift basket, sent it down to Williams in a bag though. And it had champagne, sweets, and all that kind of stuff in it. And Toto had written on the front of it, he said congratulations. I'm paraphrasing. He was like, "Congratulations, you lucky bastard, on your first podium as a team principal." Obviously, Toto was joking about that, but he was super thrilled for James. I mean, obviously, James had worked under Toto for just so long that I think that for Toto, it must have been the fact that, hey, by the time I'm done being a team principal, this will be the guy I think I want to replace me. But then when Williams came knocking for him, I don't think Toto could stand in his way of moving over there. And I think for James, he's done such a fantastic job at the team and trying to, get them off Excel spreadsheets and, modernizing it like you had said so well, Adam. And I think, the factory needs a lot of capital expenditure. They've been doing that slowly. It is something that takes a few years, but I mean, they have been trying to set themselves up so well for 2026 that I think that this was validation in the direction they are going with the team.
Right. Now, I want to just touch on a couple of other quick things. Quick notes here.
We got a lot to talk about here.
Wow, we do. It was a big race.
We still got.
Yeah. Let's talk about Mercedes. I think it was a get right race because we're coming down to the end in terms of timing here. But
George Russell.
Russell, again, very consistent all year long. I mean, he has some of the most podiums in the sport. Oh, he's got the most podiums right now this season, other than the two McLaren drivers and Max Verstappen.
Oh, I didn't know that.
He's just been an animal this year.
More than
extremely
Charles
quiet.
Leclerc. Interesting.
Maybe Charles got more. I don't think so though. I have to check that stat. That could be wrong.
I'm sure the comments section will correct us.
Yeah, and you know what? Please,
like
go
we
ahead.
should be corrected.
Be my guest.
Yes?
My point is, he's got a lot of top 5 finishes.
Yeah,
and Kimi Antonelli had been struggling, and Toto basically last race said it wasn't good enough, and now he's in 4th place. Maybe a track that suits the car clearly, But, at the same time, you got to race the race and you got to make no mistakes. And they didn't. And how is Mercedes feeling today? Is this repeatable?
Yeah, I think it is. I think for George, we should definitely start with him because he had been suffering from what I've been told are flu-like symptoms all weekend long to the point where on Friday they were considering replacing George with Valtteri Bottas for the whole weekend because that's how sick George Russell was. And so, Adam, I think when you look at an athlete who's got to fight through, something like that, George wasn't talking to the media all weekend because he was really sick. He was basically, when he wasn't in the car, he was like resting or he was doing a debrief and then resting. And so for George on Sunday, just an incredible drive because of where he started, what had happened at the start, his teammate overtaking him, having to fight back through that, manage the tire, and not really knowing what that hard tire was going to give him as well, and then being almost as quick as Max Verstappen. And so if George had have qualified a little higher, I think he's pushing Max for race victory. Like that does come down to there being a battle between the two of them of some kind. And I think for a guy who is that sick, very impressive. Obviously, he doesn't have his contract sorted for next year. We haven't been given an announcement yet, although we do understand that he will be back at the team. We don't know what the length is. We don't know what the marketing obligations are.
Right.
But I think, Adam, you can bet that he's going to be pushing and arguing even more behind the scenes after pulling off a very good victory for this team as they're now second in the constructor standings. They've overtaken Ferrari. And so, Adam, when we look at that battle between those two, it's going to be very tightly contested and very tightly fought. Now you've got Red Bull Racing has got a resurgence going on as well. You've got three teams fighting for second in the constructor standings. You're going to need a strong George Russell, and in the back end of it, you're going to need a strong Kimi Antonelli, and that's what they got today. Toto Wolff obviously very happy with what Kimi had done, P4. I think for Antonelli, this was the weekend that he needed coming off of Monza, which was a very shaky weekend for him, and he knew it. He even expressed that in the media following this race. He's one of the only drivers that was able to get past Liam Lawson in this race as well. So I think, Adam, if they get more consistency out of Kimi Antonelli, I mean, the fight for second in the Constructors' Championship is going to be extremely fierce from those three teams. Okay.
Well, I'm excited for it. There's a lot to watch for this year. I do really hope, Tim, and maybe this is, well, it is getting ahead of myself. I really hope next year that we're not looking at like what we looked at in 22 and 23, man. This is so fun. It's so fun.
I hear you. It's I mean, let's not get ahead of ourselves and get all sad. I
don't want to get sad before I need to get sad
by things we don't know just yet. However, I mean, I think, Adam, though this race was pretty incredible, and I think also that for fans that are watching, for sure enjoy this. And I mean, if Max Verstappen's able to fight back, I mean, that's going to be super impressive.
Yeah,
man. I cannot tell people how important the Singapore Grand Prix is going to be. Like if you're going to keep watching F1, you've got three drivers now in contention for a driver's title.
It's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. It's been a long time since we've had that. Been a long time.
And people are probably going to give us crap in the comments by saying, well, he's 69 points back. And it's like, yeah, but Piastri DNFs again and Verstappen wins.
I'm sorry. Are people, if you're already pre-fighting the comments, which you should never do, Tim, by the way. You should not pre-fight the comments.
Don't preempt.
Second, if they have something to say about that, I will simply point them to the picture of Max Verstappen and be like, you must be new here. I don't know what else you want me to say, man. Like, it's Max Verstappen. You must always watch out for Max Verstappen. So I'm just going to pull into our questions.
Oh yeah, we do
segment.
have questions.
Yeah, we do have some questions. So let me rip through these here. Oh, okay. We kind of talked about this, but I think it's a good one. If Christian Horner, this is from Michael, if Christian Horner was still team principal for Red Bull, would Max Verstappen be seeing the same recent run of success?
Ooh, no, because I think that, you know, the reason they're having the string of success that they're having, I think, is because, you know, they have someone new who's involved on a technical level, who is the boss of the team.
Yeah.
And that's what they needed. And that's not to say that, you know, obviously Christian Horner got that team to where it is and how big it is, right? Like he was he was a huge cog in the wheel. But I think in this day and age of F1, it takes a different type of a mind to run some of these positions. And as we see up and down the pit lane, that's what we're getting. Like,
yep.
You had said it, Adam, so well. Ayo Komatsu down at Haas, Andrea Stella over at McLaren, James Valls down at Williams, Alan Permain now down at Racing Bulls. Now you've got Laurent Mekies at Red Bull Racing, Andy Cowell down at Aston Martin, and you know the list goes on. Jonathan Wheatley down at Sauber, and you see what, you know, these minds are doing with the teams now. It's much different. And so I think it's a different F1. And I think Red Bull Racing made the right decision now when you look back and now you look forward to see the attitude of the team, what are the drivers saying, and how is the performance shaking out.
Next one, Brian. Another Red Bull question. Does Red Bull look to have the pace for Max to win at Singapore, which is a track they historically don't do well at, or can we expect a return to form for McLaren after the brain fart of a weekend? That's a great question.
That is a very, very, very good question, and that is going to be the question, I think, that's going to answer whether or not Max is going to be fighting for a driver's title for the rest of the season, because Singapore is not a track where Red Bull has gone well at in the past.
Yeah.
Like recent past. And they really struggle at it because it's rough, it's bumpy, the asphalt isn't very slick, it's abrasive, and it's extremely hot. Obviously, McLaren, that's going to be a track that they should be very competitive at. But if Red Bull turns around and they're competitive there, then yes, McLaren should be very worried. They already are, and they have expressed that worry as to Singapore coming up. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it was
the one year where Red Bull won every race. Singapore was the one race they did not win.
That's right. Carlos Sainz won that for Ferrari. But I think, Adam, that is going to be for Max Verstappen, and I think Helmut Marko called it dreaming. Yeah. He's like, essentially, if they can perform very strongly in Singapore, then the Drivers' Championship actually becomes something more than just a dream.
Ryan, last question. Sask F1 fan. Out of the podiums by Hülkenberg, Hadjar, and Sainz, how would you rank them 1 to 3? And I guess he doesn't say what criteria, but maybe impressiveness or feel good, or however you want to rank them.
They're all good in their own way. I don't want to just use that as a way of getting out of the question. But off the top of my head, I am going to go Hülkenberg, Sainz, Hadjar.
Love it. All right, Tim. We had a blast here.
It was a great race, man.
I will say this: we've got iRacing now on the sim. Tim has been doing some iRacing, so we might have to throw some of that up on the channel as well. Tim's been like hours and hours and hours at iRacing. I'm sure we'll see him this week as well. It's great.
You didn't
won
tell
a
him
race.
yeah, I did win a race. You didn't tell him I pitched a tent there beside the simulator.
Well, it's really. I mean, maybe we'll start using iRacing for our simulator races.
Yeah, we're gonna get a couch. We're gonna put it right beside the iRacing, so I just sleep there, and I can
there you go.
wake up and just,
Perfect.
I think I've become a little addicted to it. Just a tiny
Perfect.
bit.
This is a good thing.
I really would love to do some live races and stuff in wintertime when F1's taking a bit of a break for sure. It'd be fun.
Well, it'll be a blast, buddy, and we're looking forward to the next race in a couple weeks here for Singapore. Tim, have a good week, and we'll talk to you soon, man.
All right, thanks, Adam. Appreciate it.